This episode of the Wedding Film School Show is brought to you by MusicBed, the best music licensing platform for wedding filmmakers. Head over to themusicbed.com and enter our code WFS on checkout to get a free month on your annual wedding subscription. Now, on to the show.
Anytime that you can be on the receiving side of a service that is important to you, paying attention to what that feels like and why it feels that way.
But I kind of love and relish the concept of like working with someone, like what you're trying to get out of them is that authenticity.
You can have a client who is down for all the posing and all of that, but then when it comes to the candid moment, I mean, they might just not have that presence. You can't fake or direct that.
How can someone become a better listener?
It's just being present, putting yourself in their shoes and being really aware of, how loud are you speaking? How much are you speaking? Like, what energy are you bringing? Are you stressed out? Are you running late? Like, don't bring that into the room. Don't bring that in front of your client.
Like you said, read the room. That's like half the job, I feel like.
Wedding filmmakers spend so much of their time trying to make good films and so little of their time trying to understand the people they're working with.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Wedding Film School Show. Again, my name is Jared Haskell, and I'm here in studio with Jason McCutcheon, co-host, business partner. Welcome to another great episode. We have an awesome guest for you today, someone that we've been trying to get on for a long time, and she's just so busy and so good that we've finally been able to squeeze her in. And but before that, Jason, why don't you do some housekeeping things to start us off?
Okay, so first and foremost, hopefully you're enjoying. We're doing weekly releases now. So if you didn't know that, we're doing weekly podcast releases from now on. We're going to be doing our very, very best. If you are listening to this, though, we do have a YouTube channel called The Wedding Film School Show. If you'd rather, for some weird reason, actually watch us do this, or maybe you're just a YouTube person, you're at your desk, you have YouTube playing, whatever it is, we try to kind of be there. So definitely we'd love to see you over there on YouTube. And like the biggest thing for like, if you're doing podcasting, like most people, we're not making tons of money on a podcast. So all we ask out of people is, hey, if you enjoy this and you enjoy this show, give us 5 stars if we've earned your 5 stars. And let people know that it's quality and good. And then like that to us means the world, because we want to be providing value to you. And we need to know, hey, was this valuable? That helps us know. So we just want to be providing, I think, wedding filmmaking education and maybe a little more nuance, a little bit of a different way. I feel like our guest today, though, is a perfect person to kind of bridge that gap, right? Because I remember meeting Peyton in 2019 at Vision Quest. That was like, seems like a lot of things started there. A lot of relationships, it's like a really interesting event, right? And a lot of people like either at the tippy top or like right before they kind of launched, right? And I remember meeting her, and she afterwards, like she was like talking about, she posted a video in the group for the Vision Quest group, and it was like this video of like a party she did. And I think I remember saying to Jared, like, oh, she's a good editor or something. Or like, wow, she did a good job. That was like really great for somebody. Like, I don't know how far she was in the industry yet, but I remember thinking like, she's gonna do well. Okay, and then suddenly she's Peyton Frank, and it's a whole other thing. And I was like, I kind of undersold that one. So anyway, our guest today is Peyton Frank. So how you doing?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here. 2019 feels like a lifetime ago for me. I'm sure it's the same for you. So I'm excited to be here on the other side of things and excited to get into it.
Yeah, it's fun to watch people like develop and grow. It's weird because like I have no part in your journey whatsoever. But I feel like when like if you were at that event and like I felt like some pride in your success, right? Like I feel like I kind of shared in it, even though it wasn't part of me at all. I was like, oh, that was awesome. Like I got to see that before it was,
Thank you. That means a lot.
And it's like, it's fun going to like Vision Quest, and we usually go to WPPI every year, aren't going this year, but like meeting people And when you meet people, you're just like, that's a nice person. Like, I really like these people. Never looked at their work whatsoever. And then when you finally see your work, you're like, oh, shoot, I should have felt so much smaller around this person. I should have been like a little bit more humble and just shut up.
That's funny.
And you know, you were definitely one of those people. I was like, oh shit, Peyton's work is so good. And like, I had no idea, just like hanging out, talking, and like group settings to everybody. You kind of just assume everyone's there to like learn and grow. And you know, at these things, everyone's at these like different stages of their business, and just, you know.
Well, it just goes to show, you know, be nice to everyone.
Totally. Totally.
But anyway, Peyton, why don't you tell everybody about yourself and about like your work and kind of your brand?
Yeah, so I have been in the wedding industry for 10 years. I started out as an intern and working for a wedding planner in college, and then got into video, have been doing video for like 6 to 7 years. So I have a really deep understanding of the wedding industry, and from a planner's perspective and vendor's perspective. I've worked for florists and calligraphers and kind of like everything in between before really getting into video. Now I specialize in you know, high-end destination events, multi-day weddings, and events with some of the most incredibly talented planners and photographers that you can work with. And yeah, I live in Austin, Texas. Previously was in Dallas, Fort Worth, but have called Austin home for about a year and a half, 2 years.
That's great. So one of the things I think that one of the first things I noticed when I started to see, like, because we talked about your journey a little bit, is like at some point you started to, I don't really know what was the chicken and the egg in the scenario, but you started to do a lot of stuff with KT Mary. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, it's on. Like to me, in the industry, there's a few photographers who are like kingmakers, right?
Yeah.
And she's one of them. Like if you get into that circle, you create a certain brand for yourself, and like that kind of lift just starts to happen. Tell everybody a little bit about, like, because I think one of the things people miss, because I even see people all the time, the adversarial relationships they get with these photographers and these people. Mm-hmm. And it's such a missed opportunity. And so I always want to educate people, like, be nice to everyone, especially photographers and planners. And you might, you know, who knows what that can mean for you. How did that kind of become like a really fruitful collaboration for you?
Yeah, I think this is a great story, so I'm glad that you're asking about it. I met KT it was in the pandemic, either like late 2020, maybe September of 2020. And I had connected with a planner previously at the end of 2019 or early 2020 before the pandemic, Amanda Slater, outside of Colorado. Outside of Denver, she had kind of approached me and she was like, hey, I'm going to do this, you know, editorial for my brand. KT's going to shoot it. We're going to do it in Jackson Hole at Amangani. I'd love for you to film it. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I love your work. I love KT's work. I would love to, you know, go to that gorgeous destination with you and collaborate on something for her brand. So I kind of just assumed like it's happening, great opportunity. Well, then we get closer to when that's going to happen. And Amanda emails me and she's like, hey, KT, you know, needs to kind of see more of your work, like talk to you a bit before we can like make this go forward. And I was confused because I felt like, well, you're the planner, like this is your shoot, like you're making the decision, right? And kind of was like, oh, okay, well, like KT wants to have a lot of creative input on who she's working alongside. So I was kind of like, okay, stakes are, you know, a little higher. Like it's just like not a done deal. So KT reached out, we kind of exchanged some work, and she said that something that she was really hoping for on this project was some behind the scenes content. She has a really great educational program called the Abundance Plan and some other educational opportunities. But she really needed behind the scenes content, and this wasn't something she had done a ton of. So she reached out. She was like, do you have any examples of work like this? And I had a few like behind the scenes of like a bridal lookbook that I'd shot in Dallas, and I had worked with the photographer Jose Villa on a real wedding in 2019. And I had gotten a few clips of him just in the, bridal suite and throughout the wedding, a few by accident. And I was like, oh, this is great footage of Jose. I'm going to put together like a little 60-second clip. And so I had that I was able to share KT.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, but did you send that to Jose?
Yeah, Jose had that. And
Okay.
so, that was just kind of like social media content. And so I sent this stuff over to KT. And, this was just pretty B-roll stuff that I was sending her. And she was really looking for like behind the scenes, like educational content. And I was like, KT, like I haven't done this before, but I would love to do it. Like, here are my ideas. Here's how I would approach it, and really, pitched myself for it. So she said, okay, great. I put a lot of time and, thought into going into this editorial shoot. We had like a few models, some incredible fashion. Gabrielle Hurwitz was the bridal fashion stylist, great dresses. So I was going into it to capture, this content for Amanda and for all of us, but also this behind the scenes of KT and her husband and business partner, Chad. So, I showed up with like a full shot list of the questions I wanted to ask her, like all the different things that I needed, to make it like a 20-30 minute runtime, and really just worked really, really hard on it when I was there, to great footage. And, in between like looks, even though I was tired or like needed to review footage or whatever, I'd be like, okay, no, I'm going to
You didn't just go sit in the spa?
Yeah.
Tempting.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, I'll take KT over here and we'll do this little quick interview. And, just did all this like prep work and production work. And then I got home and I spent all of my time editing this, really doc style behind the scenes content. It's something to this day I'm still super, super proud of, just because I put a lot of effort into it, and it was something brand new, which, for me, like I love doing things that are new. I love a creative challenge, and that really appealed to me. And then meeting KT and seeing how she works, she's very focused. Like there is a reason why she is the best of the best. And she has just years of experience and varied experience. And she's a very smart, just hardworking, talented, creative artist and business person. And that really, really just resonated with me and someone who I really look up to. So, I was able to kind of shape this behind the scenes to look like, what I thought that it should look like and what I thought, people would get the most out of. And I think it's, such a good representation of how she works from the scouting to the shooting to the post process. And, kind of over delivering for her and going above and beyond of just, creating behind the scenes. Like I really approached it like it was a doc for Netflix or something. Like I was like, this is it. Like this is the KT behind the scenes. So that really, it landed with her. Like she saw the effort that I put in, and she saw that I wasn't taking this lightly, and I treated her as my client. So, our relationship just went from there.
Nice.
So many good pieces of advice in there that you're just telling your story, but so many things I think that wedding filmmakers can take away. First of all, just hearing about KT and kind of putting myself in her shoes about like, she is at the top of the industry when it comes to photography. Mm-hmm. Like she is somebody who needs to just know who she's working with to a T, because the people that she has around her affects her work at the end of the day.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
if her work is affected, like it could go downhill or uphill. Like so competitive at the top of the industry. So many awesome photographers that it's like the smallest little thing can affect like a relationship with a planner potentially, like, and then it could fall back on the videographer. So important, guys, to put yourself in the mind of the photographer that you're trying to get work with and partner with. And I think it's so funny that she put you through the ringer for a stylized shoot that I would assume that you're doing a lot of this as a labor of love to just break into the industry, but she put you through it, and well deserved on the other end. So,
well, the thing I'm thinking, Peyton, is like, I don't know if you've seen this or whatever, but I see it a lot where essentially filmmakers bristle at being little brother.
Yeah,
and I'm always like, that's how the industry is, though. Like, planner, photographer, me somewhere down here. It's like, and it doesn't mean like I'm a crappy artist or anything like. It's just like the chain of command / who I'm interested to like it's interesting to me that you were just like, no, I'm gonna work for this client, the photographer, and not like, no, I'm an artist too, KT. How dare you? Ooh, you have to vet me. Like why do you think filmmakers just like can't get over that kind of thing?
I think we forget, it's easy to forget as a creative that this is a collaborative industry. It's a collaborative craft, no matter what level of, or what spectrum of the film industry you're working in. It's collaborative. And I think it's easy to lose sight of that and, to feel like you're this artist and making, your name on your own. And that's just not how it is. Whether you're working in the film industry or you're working in live event production, it's collaborative. So, with KT, she had to vet and make sure that this was a collaborator who could be valuable on her team and not just, meet the standard of her work, but also work to elevate it. And, I got to give her a lot of creative ideas. I got to show her what a behind the scenes could look like when she came to me and she said, I don't know what this looks like. I don't know how long it's going to be or, the runtime or, what it's going to be like, but this is my goal. And she was able to hand over a lot of that creativity to me so we could be collaborators. And I think that you just have to come into any event, any project with that collaborative approach. And the more that you're a good collaborator, the more that people are going to want to work with you and the better all of our work is going to be.
Yeah. Looking to add value, right? Is like in every environment you're in is like the other day I'm at a wedding and I walk and I'm like, that DJ can't be there. So I go to the planner. I'm like, I think you might want to look at this. And they're like, oh, shoot. 100%. Thank you. Right. We had a planner on a couple of weeks ago, luxury planner. She's like, I'm looking for people on my team who will help me roll the tent down when it's raining. Right. Just it's collaborative. It's not about you at some level. It's just like, can you be a part of the team? Right. So
something that I'm noticing, Peyton, is like how into luxury weddings you are. Like I'm picking up that you know exactly who's in the industry, who's at the top of the top, whether it's like the dress, designer, whether it's the planner, whether it's, whoever in these stages, the right people. Do you feel like you were into it and you knew the kind of leading players before you broke into the industry? Have you always been that way? And do you find there's importance in that once you break into that industry?
I think it just comes from being in the industry for a long time and paying attention to the work that people are doing to, previously, of course, publications, now more so social media. It's just understanding like who's who. Of course, I can't know everyone. There are so many amazing, talented people, but yeah, like if that's where you want to work, I think you do need to know what it is, and know what it is to even decide if that is where you want to work. For me, it was just, a genuine interest and genuinely following people whose work resonated with me and who were doing things that I found interesting. I think that there was, a point in my career where I was like, I don't really want to do weddings if I'm continuing on the same path and continuing to do the same sort of thing. But it was when I got to a level of working with, this next level of collaborators and creatives who were doing something just over the top that really kind of kept me interested. I'm someone who likes new challenges and new things. And I think that kind of satisfied my need. But yeah, I think that, just keeping up with the industry and all of that, if that's something that interests you, then yeah, it's important.
At least in your local market, like even if you don't have aspirations, and we talked before, and I think like you kept saying, well, what's interesting to me and what's interesting to this part, like kind of like that's a big thing for a lot of us is, well, what's interesting to you? Like what will keep you committed, right? Because it takes total commitment. If you're going to do this, it's going to take your heart and your soul, and hopefully you rest, but also at the end of the day, still you're leaving it on table, right? And I think you got to be interested. So one of the things I know you're interested in looking at your work, and you're talking about magazines, is kind of editorial. You like fashion, you like the beauty industry, like dresses, like all of that is just coming through in what you do. And so obviously you're involved in editorial. You're also involved in weddings. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes I look at your work and I'm like, I can't tell the difference, like between which one is an editorial styled, which one is a wedding.
That's a game we should have played.
Yeah. But I think that's intentional, right? And I think that's part of the magic. And so I've always thought like, I wonder what she's learning from this environment that's being brought into a real wedding with a real bride. And like, maybe what can we give a listener to like, maybe kind of elevate those sessions? Because everybody wants to look like a model, right? Every bride wants to feel like they're in a magazine and feel beautiful. So I feel like kind of there's some crossover there.
Yeah, totally. I just have that interest in fashion and all of that. But, I've had these great opportunities to film, whether it's a bridal lookbook or an editorial that a planner was passionate about, bringing together a photographer. I've had these opportunities, and I think that absolutely relates to and crosses over with how I approach weddings. I absolutely love portraits and fashion, and I always want to know what a client is wearing and kind of what their vision is for that, and bringing that through on the day. And if a client in the consult or the planner relays to me, this client really was drawn to the way you capture things so editorially, then I'm going to make note of that and know, okay, she really wants this type of imagery that she's seeing, this fashion forward imagery, or, this big focus on the dress. But that's not to say that I don't have clients who come to me and say, I just want a candid day and I love the way you see the world, but I don't want to be bothered to pose. I don't want to do any of that. And I can absolutely adapt to that.
Like when you're like kind of switching styles, right? Like how does that posing methodology work its way into a couple? Because most of us are probably working with people more the latter, more like, hey, just stay out of my way, or I'm uncomfortable on camera. Like, do you find that like even with those couples, you're able to kind of use some of the tricks to kind of pull the best out of them?
Yeah, I think you really just have to be very attuned to who that client is and what they want in their final product, and also in what they want their experience to be on their wedding day, and balancing that. For example, I had a client that I think of right off the top of my head who had incredible fashion, who hired a photographer who's very much has a candid approach to photography. And, we were shooting couples portraits, and I could tell everything's going to look amazing on photo, but it's just a little disconnected, a little bit awkward on video. And I was like, this client is not going to be happy with this finished product unless I step in and I get what I need. So I told the photographer, hey, you're not going to be into this, but I need a few things. I need them kind of like walking and smiling, whatever. I'm going to have to step in and direct a little bit more for just a few minutes. And, whatever, change your batteries, do whatever if you're not into it. But I just have to do this. And I knew, I had 60 seconds. I knew the groom wanted to get to the party. I knew he was uncomfortable in front of the camera, but I knew I had to deliver what they had seen in my work. So it just comes from experience of working with models, of working with clients, of brides, I know that in product because I've edited so many films, and I know what looks good and what doesn't, and what I can work with, and how much time I need. And you just step in and you just ask for what you need for the sake of the client. If it's a client who I had a client in 2019 who said, we just want a candid approach. They hired a candid photographer. They said, we don't want to know that you're there. Like, literally don't want to know that you're there. I didn't say anything except for hello and goodbye to that client on their wedding day. And she had incredible fashion, and I didn't step in. I captured it how I could, and I knew she was going to be happy with that. But you just have to be really attuned. I knew with that client, there were moments where I was like, I really want to step in. I want to direct this moment. I want to pull her away from the party, but that wouldn't have been acceptable or appropriate for that client. So you just have to really, really listen and really, really understand like their needs and their expectations for their wedding weekend experience and for their wedding film, and balance that.
Well, and also it's like, what is the actual win here? Is the win make a film that I like or make someone happy?
It's always make a film that the client wants.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, like, I think losing sight of that is going to create tension and reduce your impact. And like, this is what people don't, you're mentioning, what's funny is like, we run a very different business, but there's a lot of similarities that I think successful people do. And Jared and I would be like, well, don't do that. The photographer's going to tell on you. Like, that's what we would tell our team. Like, don't do that. If that photographer said, or if that couple's like, don't do this, I don't want it, and then you force them to do it, the photographer could go to the planner and be like, don't work with that person. They disrespected the client. And like, people need to understand, like, it's all collaborative. It goes all back to that thing is like, we're all working to give this couple the experience that they want. Right. And so, you take your L's sometimes you don't get the exact film you love, but you more often than not, you'll get something good that you can use somewhere in your portfolio. And like,
I thought you were going to say, there are a lot of similarities in the luxury space and, kind of more normal, just country club weddings and that. Every groom likes to drink at the cocktail bar.
That too.
No matter where you are, that's the story.
Here's what I do find, Peyton, is every groom thinks they don't want to be on camera, and oftentimes they actually like it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I think that's the same for every client. Some couples are very used to being in front of the camera, but most couples, even if they are used to it, they're nervous on their wedding day. It's high pressure, it's high expectations, and they're very attuned to your energy, the energy of the photographers, the planners. So a lot of it is just kind of picking up on, their headspace and how they're feeling, and then being really mindful of you and your team and how you're approaching the wedding day to make this a positive environment, not just for their experience, but because all of that energy is going to show up on camera, as we know, and you just have to take responsibility for the part that you play in creating that environment.
Anytime I've worked with models, like, there's, obviously some are better than others, but in general, like, they're doing their job. You get them on camera, half the time you barely need to do anything. Right? You just point your camera and tell them what you're looking for, and they'll just do it. That's great. It's nice. It's easier to get good images, but I kind of love and relish the concept of like working with someone who's giving you like what you're trying to get out of them is that authenticity.
Yeah.
And like, that's the beauty of what's on camera, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was going to say, on the flip side, you can have a client who is down for all the posing and all of that. But then when it comes to the candid moments or the dancing or any of that, I mean, they might just not have that presence and that chemistry. And it's just not there. So, when that comes through and a client's really connected to their friends and family and their, partner, like that comes through and that shines through and you can't fake or direct that. It just is what it is.
So when you're working with brides and grooms and different clients, right? How can someone become a better listener? You've mentioned so much of like essentially, empathy, listening, feeling it out. Like how can a filmmaker become a better listener so that they have a better sense of all these things on the wedding day and they're not kind of tone deaf, I guess is what I would say.
Yeah. So for me, this can start, in the booking process. If I'm having a consultation with the actual client or with the planner, I'm taking notes on everything that they tell me, even the smallest things, because you're going to want to go back and review that going into the wedding day or into the wedding weekend. I think that, if you're getting the client, face to face on a Zoom call or, whatever your booking process is, asking questions that, really draw out certain things that you're going to want to pay attention to. I always ask them to just tell me their vision for the wedding day and, what are they most looking forward to? And, sometimes that's them walking down the aisle, or the first dance, or moment with their mom and the getting ready suite, or it's a detail, or it's their dress. Like, you just have to pick up on these things and take note of them, and review that ahead of time, and just give that a little extra special attention. And then on the wedding day, it's just being present. It's being quiet and listening, and kind of listening to their emotional cues of how they're feeling. But I think it's just like, it's so important to be really, really aware, and be able to read the room that you're in. Like, have you ever showed up and you can tell there's kind of a tense emotional moment, and then a vendor shows up and they're talking and they're making jokes and they're chatting with people, and it's like, not right now. Like, you read the room right now. Or sometimes you have a client who is nervous, and that is what they need. They need someone who can come in and liven up the room and bring in the energy, but you don't know until you give it time to really be attuned. So just paying attention and putting yourself in their shoes and being really aware of, how loud are you speaking? How much are you speaking? Like, what energy are you bringing? Are you stressed out? Are you running late? Like, don't bring that into the room. Don't bring that in front of your client.
Yeah.
So important. It's such a big deal, and so many things that you can just learn from being an emotionally intelligent person, right? Just like you said, read the room. That's like half the job, I feel like.
Well, wedding filmmakers spend so much of their time trying to make good films and so little of their time trying to understand the people they're working with.
Just being like techie. Just being like, if I just do this color correction better, I'll get higher paying jobs.
Like, it's a purely mechanical transaction.
Yes.
Like, you would be shocked. Maybe you wouldn't. But a lot of people would be shocked how many people do not even look up the people they're collaborating with the day of before they show up.
Yeah. And I want to speak on that too. Not only look them up, but reach out to them.
Yes.
Yeah.
A photographer you're both essentially extensions of each other's team from a guest experience or a client's experience perspective.
Yes.
You are the same team. They don't know. They just see that you have a camera. So you're all one team, and you really need to be able to collaborate and work together to communicate your needs ahead of time, to, let them know of anything that might be unique about your process. Go ahead and communicate that, of course, like, respectfully, and ask them as well, like, how do you like to work, and how can I make this wedding day easier for you? But I think it's absolutely essential to not just look those people up and get a sense of their style, but also ask them, if there's anything that you need to know or they want to communicate to you ahead of time, and also establish, how should we communicate throughout the wedding day to make adjustments or to communicate our needs to each other throughout the day.
Yeah, literally, like, I ask people, would you like me to text you? Or do you not want that?
That's a great one.
Right. Like, I'll say something like, like, certain people you might have a relationship with. So I'll say, hey, you had a engagement session with this couple. How do they like to interact physically?
Yeah.
How do they what are we trying to accomplish? Oh, they don't like to touch each other. They're very awkward. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, like, I'll keep that in my mind, right? For the whole, and it's not just like making the photographer feel comfortable. I'm thinking, like, I'm going to be missing things from this film that I normally would have. So I have to compensate in other areas.
And I think about, like, what are some ways that people can learn that without just experiencing it for years and years and years? And, like, how can you walk into a room without just having to and understand that without shooting?
I don't know. I don't know if there's any shortcuts.
I don't know.
I think that one thing, that is a practice that I like to do is just paying attention whenever, we're providing a service to a client on a really important day, on a day that they're, paying us a lot of money. They're paying a lot of money for this party, this experience. But anytime that you can be on the receiving side of a service that is important to you, paying attention to what that feels like and why it feels that way. So for me, I love to go to a spa day. And I've been to, different ones or received, an experience from different people, and you pick up on the smallest things, and you realize that it really is those small things that take an experience from average to extraordinary. My boyfriend and I, we just did an incredible 2-week vacation in Hawaii. Part of it, we went to an island, Kauai, with his parents and stayed in an Airbnb, and just booked some different activities and stuff. But then after that, we went to a different island, and we stayed at a really, really nice resort that my travel planner arranged for us. And we paid a lot of money for food, and the spa services were more expensive than anything else. But, you just saw that level of service like come through, and we loved it. Like it was so, life-changing and so what we needed. And you could really tell, as someone who works at the spa's concierge or this, resort's concierge, it differed a lot from like the Airbnb host, how they interacted with us. Or our next island, we went to just kind of like a standard hotel, that level of service, like how they spoke to us, and it's just those little things. So whatever it is, like maybe, go fine dining or something like that, and just pay attention. And you'll also be more attuned to when something's off. There was a day where we were at this resort and we were working from our laptops, and, the woman who was making coffee, she was speaking really loudly, and she was talking about what she was going to do that weekend. And like, not in a snotty way, but just in an observant way. I was like, I don't think she's going to be here much longer. Like you can't talk that loudly, and you can't talk about what you're doing this weekend at this resort where, people are coming for their honeymoons, or they're coming to get away from their super high stress, important jobs. Like they're expecting the best of the best. And, something as simple as that, like it impacted my experience, and, someone's going to notice that, and they're not going to be a good fit there anymore.
If you have no sense or palate for luxury, you're going to have a hard time selling luxury. And I always tell people, it's like, you need to know how to speak their language. You need to know what fonts they look at. What are the colors that they look at? Like every single part of that experience, like listening to that person starts way before they are your client. It starts with like understanding what they want to buy and who they're comfortable working with. And if you don't have a sense of that, like, I don't know, like I do think it's tricky, right? Because if you just don't have a palate, I can't just force you. I can't say everyone can develop that. Like, I'm not sure, but I'll tell you, you definitely won't develop it if you don't invest in experiencing it or just learning about it.
Yeah.
You know?
And there's so many ways, like you said, there's books and there's all kinds of ways to just pay attention. And it doesn't even have to be a luxury experience.
No.
It can just be going to, anywhere. And we all notice the difference in how it impacts us when you're paying for anything. It doesn't matter what it is, and you're getting good experience versus bad experience. And, we're talking about someone's wedding day, something that is one of the most important, milestone moments in someone's lives. And everyone, no matter how much they're paying you or, what their wedding is like, they deserve to be treated like the couple, like the client, like it's their day, and whatever you can do to make that experience more enjoyable for them and easier and more peaceful and more relaxing and more joyous, like that's your job. And I think across the industry, we can always continue to do better and do better and do better at that.
And all this before you even deliver a wedding film.
Yeah. So Peyton, I think a lot of people listening to the show are probably really interested to hear from you just what the experience of going from maybe like a high-end wedding, like a wedding even at like your local Ritz-Carlton or just whatever luxury hotel.
Nice, very great budgets, solid films, solid couples.
To really getting into the luxury market. And there's a big difference between those two, as we've experienced and maybe touched on a hair with at least one of our companies. Can you maybe talk a little bit about the difference between the two and just what that looks like for you on any given wedding day? Are you primarily shooting like multiple day events nowadays? Do you still do the one, you fly in one day, film the day, and then head out? Or are you doing full weekends primarily at this point? Like what does your kind of workflow look like, or does it vary?
Yeah. So first off, I'll say that my approach to any wedding is the same. Even before I was booking, higher budget weddings or at a higher point, I knew where I wanted to go. I knew what kind of service that I wanted to be able to provide and what experience I wanted to provide. So I started doing that first. And I think advice for anyone is just do that. Serve every client as if it's your best, most highest paying client ever, because that's how, that's integrity. But yeah, so I'm typically doing multi-day events. And my process to those is I'll have one full travel day, or however many full travel days it takes to get to that destination, then a full scout day. This is a day no events, no filming is taking place. I might be shooting B-roll or stuff like that, but that's a full scout day. And then the event starts. So that may be a welcome party, a rehearsal dinner, even like a pre-wedding couple session if they want to do that. And then the wedding day, sometimes a post-wedding brunch or something. But I think, one thing that I approach destination weddings with a full scout day. I do that even if it's a local wedding or a semi-local wedding. I think that that's really, really invaluable to do if you can do it with the photographer. A great way to kind of connect and like talk over game plan, not just to see what the light's going to be like, but also get an update on what's the venue like where are places that you can take them, what's the best place to, store your stuff or to park, like just being really, really prepared. The more prepared that you are, the better going into that wedding weekend and knowing what things look like. It might be a venue you've worked at a year ago and you think it, but maybe there's new construction or all the plants died over here and you don't want to show up and like take your client there and then look totally unprepared by not knowing that. So, that's one thing that I kind of learned from doing destination events and apply to any wedding.
I like that you talked about all that preparation, because so often people are like, well, I don't know how to justify X price, right? It's like, well, you can only charge so much for X video. And it's like, well, you're not selling them the video at that price point. You're selling them your preparation, the time to look at all that stuff, the time, like all of that has a value. Like to a
Absolutely.
couple that you are being prepared. And so, quantify that. Figure out what your process is and sell them your process. Don't just sell them a film, right?
Yeah,
like so many
absolutely.
times people are just saying like, it's like me versus this person, and this guy's offering a 5-minute film for this price, and this person's offering a 5-minute film for this price, and which one do you like better? It's like, okay, you can sell that way, but you can also say, this is what I do to make that film, and that's the value of it. And I think that's really, really, like, you can articulate that, and I know that that's part of it's part of your value to the couple, that you're prepared and that you know what it's going to take. And I think that's really good. Super insightful. So I know you got to go. So before we go, I wanted to kind of just ask you one more question, and unless Jared has one.
Yeah, and I have time. You can each ask a question, whatever.
I think another thing that a lot of people would be interested is like the relationship with planners, because once you get to that level of wedding filmmaking, planners kind of rule the world up there. Yeah. So like, what does your kind of relationship look like for them? Are you providing like social media, assets for them? Like what are maybe some pointers for some people who are like, I want to get in good with a planner. I've known them for a little bit of time, but I want to be, working their higher end venues. Maybe just give people like a quick tip on like working with a planner and maybe some things that you do that make you stand out and make you Peyton Frank.
Yeah. Well, I think just like with reaching out to the photographer and learning about how, what their process is like, you should be doing the same with a planner as well. Asking them how they like to work. Is there anything that, I should know about how they like to communicate or how they would like for me to communicate with the couple, can we set up a Zoom call? Can I email them without you? Do you want to be copied on everything? Just how do they like to communicate? How do things work leading up to the wedding and as well as on the wedding day and afterwards as well. Sometimes I'm delivering my films directly to my client. Sometimes I don't even have their email address, so I'm sending it to the planner and they deliver it. So I think also, social media video, obviously to our benefit, is so huge, part of Instagram, part of TikTok, whatever your strategy is. But asking that planner, hey, is there anything that you need or you want or would be valuable from me that I can give you? That might be, do like a 15-second behind the scenes reel of me just like adjusting the table, or of me like fluffing the bride's dress out before they walk down the aisle. It could be something tiny like that, but just asking and over delivering and going that extra mile to serve that planner just like they are your client, because they are the client. They're the person who has the power to refer you over and over and over and over again to their clients.
People just don't understand how true that is. I will say it's interesting is like, I do sometimes wonder if like I'm just out of touch now, like with the normal experience of most of the people who are like making wedding films. Cause I'm always like, well, do this for your planner and do this for your planner. And it's like, I do a lot of consults and coaching, and like a lot of people don't have any planners. And so I'm interested, like kind of, I think we're like, what would you say now to someone? Cause not to say that you're like, the boss of wedding planners, but what would you say to someone who's like, I don't know any wedding planners. Like, I don't even know where to start. Yeah. You used to work for a wedding planning company, right? What would be something that would be a great way to kind of open that door?
Yeah, I think I would just do your research and understand who are the wedding planners in your market or the market that you want to get into. I know some people want to specialize in elopements, where that's literally just the couple and a gorgeous destination and photo and video, and they won't have planners, but maybe photo and video is more doing the planning role. But otherwise, there are planners, and there's planners in your market, and just do the research and see who's there and see who, maybe their style or their approach resonates with what you would want to do, and get familiar with their work. Maybe follow them on Instagram, interact with their post in a really natural way. Don't DM them. Do not say, hey, I want to work with your clients. How can, you refer me to your clients? Don't ask them to do that. Planners are very busy people, but be familiar with your market, and then see, are there certain events that they're going to locally? When I was in Dallas, Fort Worth, there were just tons and tons and tons of events for the local market, and get involved in those. Go to those or offer to film them for free, stuff like that, just to kind of start being in the room and knowing who's who and who you enjoy working with, because it can be really, really powerful when you find creative partners who you love working with and love collaborating, and they can help elevate your brand and business, but you can do the same for them. That's really a beautiful relationship and valuable relationship to have.
Yeah. What is it about Texas that produces the best wedding filmmakers?
There is so much talent in Texas. It's a big state for sure. So and I think we love our weddings in Texas, and there's just so much talent here. So I think it just breeds such great community.
Topo Chico, is it Topo Chico?
Yeah, and Topo Chico.
My 4-year-old just discovered Topo Chico.
They don't do Topo Chico at Chipotle anymore. I went in the other day. I was like, yeah, Topo Chico. They were like,
that's horrible.
The guy was like, what is that? I was like, what?
No.
What? The world is a worse place now.
My kid is like obsessed with Topo Chico. Like,
it's delicious.
She loves it. So she's like, she says it in the cutest way. As a 4-year-old, Topo Chico?
Yeah.
If you don't know about what Topo Chico is, it's a seltzer water, a spring water, bubbling mineral water.
Put it this way: it's your first step into anything luxury.
It's your first step into anything Texas. My dad's from Dallas, McKinney, Texas. Mm-hmm. So
okay.
like I'm somewhat a Texan. I'm a Texan adjacent.
Yeah. And I lived in Texas for almost 6 years, so I feel the same way.
Yeah. So anyway, we love Texas. And We've been lucky enough to talk to a lot of great filmmakers like you, Peyton. And so we're really, really, really grateful to have you on. Honestly, really, really good stuff, Peyton. I'm super appreciative of it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. And, I think it's just so incredible to offer this resource to people who want to grow. I mean, when I was in the start of my business, it was just all like YouTube videos and a podcast and like whatever that I could absorb. And, not every single thing is going to resonate with you. It's really just finding what speaks to you, what is in line with what you want out of your business and your life and your art, and, discarding the rest. But thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, this is really great. And if you haven't seen Peyton's work, make sure that you are going on to Instagram. Peyton, where can people find you, find your work?
Yeah, Instagram's definitely the best place. It's just at Peyton, Peyton Frank. I post there. I have so much work from last year to catch up on sharing. I was really just kind of in it that I didn't, share everything to my page. So I definitely will be doing more of that this year and have some really special destinations and weddings coming up this year.
Awesome. Definitely a person to follow if you want to be inspired, and obviously cool person with a lot of knowledge. So definitely great. If you enjoyed this podcast, like I said, drop a like if you're watching on YouTube, and go ahead and give us a little review and let people know that it's valuable, and it's very valuable to us. And that's really just honestly means a lot to me. If what we're doing is important to you and it's helping you, that's kind of why we're doing it. So we really appreciate you guys. If you enjoyed this one, definitely help us out. Hopefully you guys check out another episode of the Wedding Film School Show coming up next week.